because they're wars and you have to fight them. Somebody has to be fighting them, because here's the thing. Rights are not given to you. Rights are not granted. We in this country have this idea that somehow, because we have a Declaration of Independence, that all these rights were given to us.
Yeah.
But that's just not true. You have to fight for your rights.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the TOWTalk Podcast. This is Denise, and I am here with my buddy Neil. And in this segment, we're going to go over some local news briefs just to keep you up to date on what's going on. Neil, why don't you get us started?
Okay, so the Town of Wallkill, as well as a lot of municipalities, have done their reorganization. So what a reorganization is at the start of every year, each local municipality, if you are not aware of this, goes through what they call a reorganization, where they have to essentially reestablish, right, all the things in the new year for the new budget year. Right.
Okay.
So this is where they appoint their attorneys, where they set the auditors, where they set the insurance, where they do. Right. So you have the budget area, and the budget tells you how much you're allowed to spend. Now this sort of sets up the entire year for who you can spend that money with. Right. Like, the professionals that you can spend your money with. So it was very interesting to see Frank's reorg here in the town of Wallkill. One of the councilmen got no committees, which, I mean, I have to tell you, committees in the town of Wallkill. So basically what a committee is each department, has a liaison from the town board that they can meet with and discuss maybe issues that may be going on in that department. And then that councilman reports back to the town board.
Okay.
It kind of separates a lot of the duties, because a lot of municipalities, right, if you don't have a full-time supervisor, or if your supervisor is busy doing other things, it allows the councilman, right, to share some of those responsibilities and basically take ownership of a specific department. I will say Town of Wallkill has not done any of their committees correctly over the years. In fact, most don't, right?
Not surprising.
Not surprising, right? So, what most people aren't aware of, right? And which I find is really, interesting, right? Is if you are assigned a committee as a council person, right?
Okay.
And you have a meeting with your department head, or you have a meeting where you meet as a committee, as the committee liaison, you are required to keep meticulous notes, right? You're supposed to take minutes of those meetings,
you
right?
have to.
Like, right.
It's got to be a record.
Town of Wallkill has never taken any minutes. And those minutes have never been submitted to the clerk, and those minutes have never been submitted to the board or the supervisor. So,
which raises a whole lot of questions.
Well, it's par for the course for people who, like, I mean, when the master plan committee first started with Councilman Johnson, he didn't take minutes for years, for the first like 3 years. I was constantly bringing it up. Like, I would think that at some point in time, like he would get the hint. You're required to take minutes. And he kept coming up with excuses as to why he didn't need to, and eventually relented when the state comptroller's office started doing came in and do their audit in 2022. And he was like, I guess I need to take minutes, because they were like, you don't have minutes,
So we don't have
that was
written records of what took place in these meetings. Great. That's
correct. Right. So just another par for the course. So very, very happy to see he got through reorg. We have a new town attorney, which is great. I think that'll be really good for the town. Why that matters, I will tell you why it matters. Okay. So part of what happened to me when I was on the board for the 2 years that I served with former Supervisor Serrano, was I got the impression that that there was information that wasn't being given to me by the town attorney. Okay. So a town attorney has a fiduciary responsibility to the entire board. They serve the entire board, not 2/3 of the board, not 3/5 of the board, right? Not like they can't pick and choose who they decide to communicate with. If they're communicating with the board, then they have to communicate with the entire board. There's no
Yes.
exclusionary factor that they can, come up with on their own where they say, I'm going to exclude one or two board members, right? Like every board member has to have all the information. I always had the impression that I was not in the loop, right? And
Yeah,
that
you've said
my
that before.
constituents, right, my constituents were being disenfranchised, right? We now find out that the third ward, right, the largest ward, 40% of the town, was being disenfranchised. That has now been confirmed, right? As one of the board members was continuously left out of emails, right, from the town attorney, right, and that's a problem. That's a real big problem. That's a fiduciary violation.
Yeah, yeah. That you could challenge that. You could take that
No,
to the bar.
you could, right.
You can get him
You could, you could,
disbarred.
you could file it. You could absolutely file a grievance for that. Right. So I had this impression. It's been confirmed that this was actually done to Councilman Vanilla. It's very unfortunate that this is the path that these people have taken. It's you listen, you have to do things the right way. Okay. I keep saying it over and over again, right? Like I understand people want to say politics, party affiliation, you name it, right? There when you're paying taxpayer money for something, right? It's okay if he was your personal attorney, right? Like that's okay. You're speaking to your personal attorney. You aren't paying for that individual.
Yeah,
That
and
individual is
this
being paid by everybody.
yeah, and this calls into question, what they were concealing. It really, it really begins to validate things that you have been saying, that Frank was saying all along about
Yes.
concealment. When you have them concealing information from the opposing party, the only member of the board that is from the opposite party, you really need to know. You really need to wonder what is going on and what they were hiding. And so, as we uncover more of this information, we'll keep you updated. Do you have any more on this that you can add?
Not on this at the moment, but I do want to give some good news, and I do want to congratulate Michelle Baker as the new commissioner of public works for the town of Wallkill.
Yes,
She
congratulations.
has served the town of Wallkill for a long time. A lot of people in this community know her name. She served under Lou and Gracia for many, many years. There really isn't anybody. I mean, she's really been running the show for a long time. Well deserved. Congratulations to her. I can't say enough good things about her. She is absolutely fantastic, and well deserved. Congratulations, Michelle.
Very nice. That is wonderful to hear. And I think that's, just to kind of add to, let's say, transparency and how important it is, in whether you're in your own municipality as much as it is here in the town of Wallkill. Frank Dendanto, our supervisor, has been keeping, posting information about what his accomplishments are, just little notes here and there to keep us up to date. And he did do a little post that I'll do here just really quick, just covering that during the first week. He addressed a fire at the Senior Horizon, fire at the Galleria. He did a deep dive into the town budget and town staffing. He had communications with the New York State Comptroller. Did a current review of P&L and some concerns there, but he didn't go into it. He met with the state senator, met with the state's assemblywoman, talked about big plans for the town, went to the Howells Fire Company for dinner, aligned the forensic auditor, starting put it together the 2026 reorganization, which Neil just discussed with you. So he is living up to his promise of keeping the community engaged. So you should follow him directly. He's right on Facebook as Frank Dendanto III. Follow him. He's keeping information there, and we are looking to have him on or brief recordings from him from maybe once a month, once every other month. I know he's been really overwhelmed having, this is just his first couple of weeks in the role as supervisor, so he's had his hands full. So hopefully we can get him in before, by the end of the month and see what's going on.
So one of the things that Frank was able to do, which he posted about the other day, was he was able to at least take a look at cash balances that the town has. He's projecting that the town has cash balance at year end of somewhere, I want to say around, I think he said something like 2 million to 2.7 million, somewhere around there is what he thinks. Having looked at some of these numbers myself, I would think that that's pretty spot on, which is pretty devastating news for the town, and for the taxpayers of the town.
Okay, explain why that is.
So I'm going to try to explain this as simple as I can for people. Okay. Think about it this way. You put together a budget for your year. Okay. And you want to buy things, throughout the year. All of a sudden, you start matching your cash flow, right, with your budget. Okay. So maybe you want to do this purchase today, but you're not going to have the money for a month or two. Okay. All right. So what do? You decide, you know what? I want to buy this today. It's on sale. I can get it today for X amount. Right. I don't want to wait a few months. I'm going to go put it on credit and borrow the money and I'll pay for it when the money comes in tomorrow. It kind of appears that that's sort of what they've been doing. Right. So, it's really unfortunate. I will be the first one to admit at year end, there is sort of a lag in cash because you're still waiting on receipts to come in. Right. So you have to have enough cash to get through your year. Okay. Knowing that you will get cash for the year 2 or 3 months after year end.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, two of the big ones are your mortgage tax and your sales tax. All right. Those come in after year end. But you have to have that money to float to be able to get you through that. A lot of municipalities, take out these interfund loans, right? They borrow the money from themselves, essentially, to bridge that gap.
And
right?
we've discussed that
if they need to.
Taking from
and we've discussed that.
Right, one budget to another budget.
Correct. So we've kind of explained that. The issue with the town of Wallkill is that they budgeted for their 2026 year and I want to say, I've been hearing different words. I believe it was somewhere around $2.3 million budget deficit. Okay? So in other words, what they said is we have enough cash to get us through the year. And what we're going to do is we're going to supplement, instead of taxing our residents, we're going to use our savings, right, to pay bills, right, for operating costs. That's what they've done. And they've done it for a number of years. Okay. So, and I've talked about that on this show. I've talked about that privately. I've talked about that publicly. I've talked about that on this show. I've talked about that at length.
Okay.
And
yes, you have.
Right. That's essentially what's been happening. So come December, they didn't have the money, the cash on hand to pay payroll. So they had to borrow some money, right, internally to make payroll, to do payroll, right, in order to bridge the gap from when they get their tax revenue, right, in February. So everybody's now going to pay their taxes, right? You own a home, you're going to pay your taxes now, right? Like you're going to town hall, you're going and you send in a check for whatever your property taxes are. That goes to the receiver of taxes, who in the town of Wallkill is Linda Harahan, who is wonderful. And she collects your taxes and she hands it over to the town. Usually there's about a month lag between her being able to accept the money, be able to, make sure that she checks off that you paid your bill, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you want credit for paying your bill, right? And then she has to hand it over to the town supervisor. So there's usually about a month lag for that. If the town doesn't have the money and has to take out an internal loan to bridge the gap, right? Then that says they don't have the money in their fund balance to pay for the budget this year, right?
Really?
Well, if you think about it, right, he has $2.8 million in cash, right? Or 2.7 is what he said, right? Give or take. Okay, we're somewhere around that number. You have budgeted 2.3 million to spend during the year, right? You know that you are not going to get some of that revenue from the 2026 budget until 2027.
So you really don't. Okay, so the 2.7 million is the cash on hand, though. Is
2.2, yes. Yes. As of December 31st, that's what we're thinking. Yes.
That's what you think?
That's what we're thinking. We don't know because again, they're 2 years behind in doing their
Well, yeah,
reconciliations.
there's that.
Right? So knowing the system is really weird, right? It's one of those things. When you close a year, you have to roll forward all your opening balances. If you're making adjustments in a previous year and you don't roll forward your balances, then your current balances aren't going to be accurate.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay? Right? So the problem is that the town being 3 years behind now, right? They haven't rolled forward their balances. They're still working on 3 years ago. That means you have to roll forward like the year you're working on. If you're working on 23 and you make adjustments to 23, you have to roll your 23 balances over to 24, roll your 24 balances to 25, and then roll your 25 balances to 26. They haven't done that.
Wow.
So you really have no idea. The best guess that we're thinking right now, or that Frank is thinking with the consultants, I'm assuming he met with, is about 2.7 million, which is about the rough math I did too to come up with that number. So it was sort of like it's two people coming to the same number. I did some rough math myself just to think. He talked to the consultant, so it's about the same.
All right.
That's what we think.
So where do we go from here? What is we still have to just bottom line is we have to get these books cleaned up to really know where we are financially. And this is a huge behemoth to get through. They're going to be working on this for months.
As much as the other side likes to say, oh, screaming panic. Nobody's screaming panic. This is you created a financial mess. Now it has to be fixed.
That's got to be cleaned up.
The municipality can't go bankrupt, right? Like, so the question is what is the town gonna do? Okay. We might be, I personally don't know. I haven't had these conversations with Frank, so I don't know. I'm thinking though, there probably would have to be some type of austerity to get through the year, because you get all your money in at the beginning of the year. You can't raise any money throughout the year. You know what revenues are going to hit, right? We know that we're taking hits on sales tax and mortgage tax. I think at the end of the day, I think what you're looking at some type of austerity to try to make it through the end of the year. I mean, this is going to be a real nail biter to get us through the end of the year.
Let me ask you a question. Just explain for our audience what austerity means in terms of a municipality.
Listen, this is honestly one of the first times I've seen a municipality get this tight. And again, it doesn't mean that other municipalities haven't done it. I've read articles about it. It could mean cuts to staffing. It could mean cuts to programs. It could mean any number of things. Planned projects may have to be put on hold for a year or two. I mean, there was a whole mess of things that that could happen. You went from a supervisor and town board that spent money like children in a candy store, right? I mean, it was oh, we're gonna throw parties and we're gonna give out awards and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and and they weren't taxing anybody for it, and the revenue, they were basically spending savings to do it,
Right. Not to
and
mention the
now their whole thing
big
is
ass sign on the lawn.
right. They even sent the supervisor. They were like, "Hey, supervisor, go take a trip to Orlando, Florida, Disney World." Right? I mean, like, he even took a trip to Disney World.
On the taxpayer
Like,
dime?
oh yeah, yeah. I got the receipts too to prove that.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, they didn't.
They
They
lived
didn't
pretty
give a
good.
shit.
They lived good while the rest of
Yeah,
us pay the bills. Isn't that how it always
right.
is? So,
Right. While they were sitting there screwing around, in the middle of the day, going to La Quinta, right? And having affairs and all that kind of shit, right? Like the town was running out of money.
nice. All right. Well,
They were spending the town's money.
all right. Well, we will
You
be
know,
keeping you updated, and hopefully we'll get to interact with Frank in the near future to get his input on what is going on. So, why don't we move on to the county? Um, so last week we reported that there was a rally in the village of Chester to oppose the sale and conversion of a warehouse into a federal ICE detention center. So it turns out some numbers have come in, and it looks like there were over 600 people that were able to get to the event. I mean, Lareau Road was packed, and I'm pretty sure there were a lot of people that showed up that just weren't even able to get to the property because even as some people were leaving, more people were showing up. So there was some swap, and then others that just couldn't get there. So just a quick recap. Hundreds of residents attended a packed public meeting in the village of Chester opposing the proposed detention center, and concerns including zoning authority, infrastructure, strain, public safety, and the loss of local control. And a lot of people were pretty heated. There was a lot of people got to speak and give their opinions about it. And then, of course, for the bulk of the people who showed, most of them couldn't even fit. I think the town hall building only holds 120 people, and it was standing room only in there. Some of that made ABC and NBC News were there. There were some interviews done. You can find those on YouTube. And there was also a rally held in the adjacent park, which I attended, and I talked about that on our live stream last Tuesday. I also have been, if you've been watching our channel, watching our Facebook page, I've been posting some clips of some of the people who spoke or sang. One of them was a cosplayer who dresses as Captain America, and we have an upcoming segment that he is going to be a guest on the show. So you'll get to meet Captain America and what he does with regard to his activism. All right. So, no, oh,
and
go ahead.
there was there was so that was the village meeting was on Monday. There was a town meeting on Wednesday. I attended both meetings. It was very interesting to hear also. So I had said, and I apologize, that I didn't think that that this was actually a real thing, only because of who owned the building, right? Remember, I said Carl Icahn
Carl
owned the building,
Icahn.
and it just seemed right. So I apparently was wrong. So I'll admit that I was wrong about that. My guess was not correct. As the Pep Boy sign on the warehouse came down, right,
Is that
and
that's recently?
yes, that came down on Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, and there were federal officials scouting the building on Wednesday morning. So this does seem to be a real thing. I find it interesting that people keep talking about water, sewer, and resources as if somehow the federal government cares about any of those things, because we've seen that this administration doesn't care about anything but themselves and what whatever their mission is.
Their
So,
agenda. Let's call it an
um,
agenda.
yeah. So I have, it appears as though it is coming.
Well, that's not good news. I guess we will we'll keep you apprised. Just a quick
This
question with that
Sure.
meeting because I understand there was a they had another rally outside as well. Did it get the same kind of attendance that we had on in the first meeting?
Nah, I mean, the town really has the proposed warehouses in the village, not the town. So the town doesn't really have a lot of say. The village might have a say, they might not. I mean, again, federal building, if it turns into a federal building and the feds own it, the feds don't have to abide by local zoning laws. They can basically do whatever
Yeah.
they want, wherever they want, whenever they want. So, it's a bit scary. I will say this, I've seen a lot of posts, you know, going one way or the other. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Taxes will go up
Yeah.
without a doubt if this facility goes in, right? You have, not only does the building come off the tax rolls, which is a commercial building, so you're going to lose the commercial
You
taxes,
lose the
right?
revenue.
You're you're losing revenue, which means all the other taxpayers in your municipality are going to have to make up that revenue. In addition, right, you're going to have more police. You're going to have more police, and you're going to have to provide more overtime to the police that you have, because there are going to be 24-hour protests at the facility, and you're going to be sticking your police officers, as we've seen in Minnesota and Oregon and every other state where this has happened, between the ICE agents and the protesters. So the local taxes, if this facility go in, will absolutely go up. There's no way to avoid it. There's absolutely no way to avoid it. And it's really sad to say that. Anybody, people saying, "Oh, it'll generate revenue and
What revenue is
it'll
it going
help
to
the
generate?
municipality." Absolutely 100% false. 100% false. Every municipality, locality where ICE has been a presence has actually cost the local municipality significantly more money. And we're not talking like small amounts. We're talking millions and millions of dollars. And you know, it just, that facility it's not good. It's not good. Won't be good for anybody. Won't be good for Orange County. Won't be good for New York. Won't be good for the United States. Won't be good.
So there you go. You know what? If you have opinions about this, post in the comments below. Let us know what you think. I mean, there's been a lot of posting on Facebook about this, and there has been input. Let me add this. There has been input from the county executive, Steve Newhouse. He did a video he posted the other day talking about this. He said he was opposed and that he was taking action on that, but didn't really go into detail. But
But then he also said people shouldn't protest. He also said that he wasn't for protesting.
yeah, it's not for free speech. Got it. All right. And
You
the
know, I really have a hard time with Democrats and Republicans saying don't exercise free speech. It'll just bring on more more of their wrath. Like his point is the more you protest, the more likely you're going to get, the more troops you're going to get, right? I mean, because he equated it to Minnesota. Like he was like, well, look, they protested out in Minnesota. This is the mentality. It's just obey, right? It's obey or else. That's what that all our politicians are telling us, right? On both sides of the aisle is obey or else. And it's really disingenuous. This is a moment in history where we need people with courage, where we need
absolutely.
people who have, you know, ethics and morals and are willing to stand up. This is the moment. The people are going to look back, right? In 6 months, we may not have this moment again. this may be the only moment we have, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I'm not trying to be, a lot of people says, oh, you're being hyperbolic, you're being, dramatic. Okay. But here's the thing. When your rights start getting taken away, where are you going to turn to?
Yeah. Especially when
Where are you going to go?
the authorities that you used to be able to turn to are no longer representing you, or no longer gonna stand up and defend you,
Or no longer exist,
or
right?
no
I mean,
longer
they've gone
exist.
right. Look at the NLRB, right? I mean, I mean, we're going to get to this in a second, but you have unions, who like places that formed unions, and you have management that doesn't even want to. You normally the NLRB would handle that. National Labor Relations Board would handle that. The NLRB has been dismantled. They're not taking anything anymore.
And
They're
there
not
is
doing
no
anything.
represent so just so you understand a little bit of what the NLRB does, if you wanna unionize, and you don't have, let's say you don't have a manager or someone to be like a union representative, or you haven't elected one yet, the NLRB can bring in a representative, an advocate, to help with negotiating the contracts that you're trying to put together with the business. And, and that kind of brings us into what we're going to talk about here. Now, last week, Neil mentioned that there are 9 medical facilities in the county that want to unionize, and they're being told, no, we're not doing that. So it's just come out that the nurses in the state of New York, they're talking about New York City here, but it's actually in the entire state. The largest nursing strike in history begins amid stalled contract negotiations. And so that includes those facilities here. So, what are the benefits of unionizing it? I mean, I understand that the right has absolutely vilified unions, and in order to enable this level of union busting. But you know what? You have a 40-hour week because of unions. You have overtime because of unions. You have benefits because of unions, because people stood up and spoke out against oppressive practices and low wages and overworking, um, child labor, and all kinds of bad practices, not to mention safety in the workplace, right? OSHA was created as a result of issues with safety. So unions have allowed you and people across the board, even non union people, to get better wages, to have health care options, to have a retirement program and a future. It used to, Neil and I are a little older. We come from maybe it almost seems like a different era, but we came from a time when people went to a job and they were there for life, and their kids might have come in to and work for the company because they got good wages, good benefits, and a good retirement. We don't have that anymore, and that's what these nurses are fighting for. So, tell me what you think, Neil.
That's you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the problem is that when it comes to forming a union, usually the government would step in when management refused, to negotiate with the union, right? Like you have sort of like mechanisms, levers to ensure that workers have rights, right? That workers' rights are being, adhered to, or that workers who want more rights, and the government now is refusing to even lift a finger to
To
help the
support the working
workers.
class, to support the
Right.
working class. And so,
But we've seen that, right.
yeah, we're
We've
seeing
seen
that
that.
across the board.
This administration doesn't care about workers and would prefer just to have go back to the way it was with child labor and no 40-hour work week, no vacation, no overtime, right? I mean, they're actively trying to change the overtime rules. We've actually seen that in the making them try to do that. I know people are like, "Oh, that'll never happen." It could happen.
In this
There's a real
administration?
possibility that
Are
it
you
could.
kidding
Yeah,
me?
it's just really sad state of affairs that this is the path. I mean, It's just racism. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Oh,
no other way
yeah.
to look at it. It's racism and classism, right? I mean, they keep talking about class warfare. There has already been a declaration of war against the working class in this country. It's already happened. Anybody using rhetoric, right, talking about a wealth tax or, and when you hear the media say, "Oh, you're just preaching class warfare politics," because there's an attack on the working class. I mean, like you're being attacked. It's like being told, you can't talk about that war. We know the war has been waged, but you can't talk about that war. Like, I'm sorry, you talk about wars because they're wars and you have to fight them. Somebody has to be fighting them because here's the thing. Rights are not given to you. Rights are not granted. We in this country have this idea that somehow because we have a Declaration of Independence that all these rights were given to us. But that's just not true. You have to fight for your rights. We got the 40-hour work week because the working class fought for that. We got the women's right to vote because women fought
Fought
for
for
that.
that.
Okay? If those people before us didn't fight for those things, they wouldn't exist today. It's not like the business class or the wealthy class or the billionaire class would have turned around and said, I feel bad for my workers and I'm going to I'm going to give them a 40-hour work week. Right?
That never happens.
That doesn't happen. Like to think that that these wealthy billionaires are benevolent, like people who are just, bestowing upon us all these benefits. No, you have to fight for what you want.
Yep. Yep. So, with that, we've gone a little bit over time here. So, we're going to wrap up. We have another segment coming up. So, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I'm hearing through the podcast verse that YouTube really doesn't like to promote political content. So if you want to stay informed and learn about what's happening locally and how that impacts your municipalities in your towns, do please make sure you're subscribed. Please like and share as always. Comment below. Let me know what you think of this, this segment, and if you have any questions. And we will see you soon in the next episode. Thanks. Take care, guys.
Peace out.